being coachable is difficult and challenging sometimes, and being a coach is difficult and challenging sometimes, and finding out how to be coachable with a good coach is kind of like something we should all be trying to figure out, right? I'm Brandon Chasteen.
I'm Bill McGill.
And this is a little bit of money therapy, and pretty excited. We got something very important to talk about today. And I think it's pretty, it's something that we all deal with. And I don't think it's just an investment thing. It does 100% affect us inside of our portfolios, but I think this also just kind of affects us at the broader landscape of life, and kind of in general. So
yeah, I think that's what we're always trying to do, is take a generalized approach to dealing with human beings, dealing with emotions, because I always like to say that people make decisions emotionally, and then they try and back up with logic. And
Sure.
so I think as coaches and financial advisors, we're always trying to kind of re-engineer that, trying to flip it around and see if we're actually making the good decision first, and trying to take, I think we spend a lot of our time trying to remove emotion out of things as much as possible.
Yeah. I think that that's a great segue into kind of talking about what I think the next month of conversation is largely going to be on. There's kind of this underlying theme of being coachable.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's really hard to be humble enough to be coachable, because oftentimes we think that we're right, and we try to come up with a ton of, what you were saying, like we make an emotional decision, then we take a lot of logic and fact and back ourselves up. And when we're right, right? So that gets hard. So being coachable can be a challenge, but it's also difficult sometimes to be the coach. And we were talking a little bit about the difference between, a coach in like Little League versus coaching Michael Jordan, right?
Right.
If you apply the wrong mentality, Phil Jackson was the wrong type of coach to Michael Jordan, the Bulls may never have been great.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan may not have ever been great if he tried to put too much, if Phil Jackson would have said, hey, I need to coach Michael Jordan on a shot, versus being a coach and just creating the strategy that puts the ball in Michael Jordan's hands to do what Michael Jordan does.
Yeah.
Could be a total different story of like the 1990s NBA, right?
Yeah.
So being coachable is difficult and challenging sometimes, and being a coach is difficult and challenging sometimes, and finding out how to be coachable with a good coach is kind of like something we should all be trying to figure out, right?
Yeah.
So with that, that's kind of the theme. So as we talk over the next several episodes, really think about, okay, how does this apply to me in that person in my life that is my coach, my mentor, or how does this apply to me into, is there a potential barrier or a wall that I have put up in my life that keeps me from being coachable in this aspect? Because if we can break down those walls and become coachable, a lot of these topics can be stuff that we put behind us and actually get really good at quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think something that we're always talking about, Brandon, too, is we're always trying to this is kind of a common theme, that we're always trying to slow people down and figure out where people are today and where they're trying to go. And to kind of go along with our analogy here, like, I remember when my dad taught me how to hold a baseball bat, right? Mm-hmm. Here's how you hold your hands. Here's where the bat's supposed to be at different times when the pitch is coming, where you should be in the box.
Sure.
Those fundamentals. And then, if you, to use your Michael Jordan analogy, Michael Jordan practiced before practice and he practiced after practice and really became a master of the sport. But he wasn't, figuring out, where do I stand on a free throw and things like that. So we're all in different progressions on our mastery of this thing we call life. And that's a challenge that we go through every day as financial planners, is trying to figure out where, humbly, humble is a huge word here. where are you in that journey?
Sure.
Are you somebody where that kind of thing comes naturally to you? We all know natural born athletes and that sort of thing. Or is that something where we need to start from square one and you got to start somewhere. Do we start from square one? Where are you at in your journey? And as coaches and professionals, how do we recognize that? And then how do we help you to get better?
And I think that we're all going to probably, at least I am going to wear out the Ted Lasso.
Go for it.
Just the how we can equate things to that TV show, because, if anything, Ted Lasso is America's coach. It's the world. He's the world's coach, right? I mean,
Right.
If you have not seen that show, you definitely should. We won't spoil too much, but it's definitely, you can see him walk into a locker room and engage different players at different levels of influence in the sport that they're in, different moments of their life and what they need. Like, one of my favorite episodes is when Ted Lasso comes out as Lead Tasso.
Yeah.
Because the players needed something different that day.
Yeah.
And being a coach and being able to read people and say, hey, I think this is what they need today. This is what this person needs from you right now.
Right.
Is I do that every day with my clients, and there's times when my clients need, all they need from me is empathy and the ability to listen to them. Sometimes they need advice. Usually that's only like 5% of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes they need tough love. Sometimes they need guidance. Sometimes they need affirmation. Sometimes they need, just a little confidence or a little nudge.
Yeah.
But it changes with every interaction. And so that's, again, we're kind of talking thematically over what we want to dig into. We'll definitely do our best to bring some fun Ted Lasso quotes into the talk, and we'll kick it off with one of my favorites. Ted Lasso, in a press conference, he says, "I love the smell of a locker room. It smells like potential." So we're going to talk about, that, hopefully getting into some of your own potential today. But today's topic, we're going to talk about loss aversion.
Yeah. Huge topic.
So I tried to find this old commercial that I remember, and I thought it was relevant just because I remember it. It's got to be at least a decade old.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who had I don't remember whose commercial it was. Maybe y'all do. But I just remember that it was like the social human study where they record, like, basically, I think it was like in New York City or Chicago or like a major city. They basically had two like stacks of Post-it notes and a wall. And it was basically just write down your memory and post it. And if it was a good memory, you put it on like a green sticky note. If it was a bad memory, you put it on a red sticky note. So the whole thing was, you walk up, they say, hey, you want to put a memory on the wall? You say yes. Is it good or bad? If it's good, grab green. If it's bad, grab red. And at the end of this study, thousands and thousands and thousands of people just writing a quick note about their memory and putting it on the wall. When they zoomed out at the end of this commercial, obviously this is like a 30-second commercial, so this happened very fast, but they zoom out, and after days and days and days of this, people sticking notes, the whole wall was almost entirely red.
Yeah.
So the point that they were trying to drive home is that throughout our life, the bad sticks with us.
Yeah.
Like, in just it weighs a different amount in our heart, mind, and soul.
Yeah, we are hardwired to learn from our mistakes,
and
hopefully.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where at the end of the day, we like to win.
Yeah,
and winning feels good, and hopefully we've all experienced a win in our life. But hand over fist, the weight of loss is just far greater. Especially after that, gratification moment passes by.
Right.
It is hard to stay and sit in the weight of winning. We oftentimes just dwell in the hard loss, the hurtful times, the times that we lose. And because of that, because like our brain starts to learn that, as a means to protection. This could be as basic as just kind of fight or flight. We tend to, as human beings, become like loss aversion machines.
Yeah.
We do everything we can to protect ourselves from experiencing loss.
It's true.
And so, so we specifically when we talk about this in like financial terms. So why is this on a money therapy podcast? Is because I've seen this before where we tend to make investment decisions based on, like it could be anything, right? It could be our neighbor gives us a stock tip, our buddy on the golf course gives us a money tip, and I see stuff every day on my social media scroll. Hey, wealthy people are doing this, and so should you. Hey, here's a way to avoid this, this, and this. Hey, if you want to do this, buy this insurance product. We see it all the time. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing is once we get inside, we make decisions and we realize they're bad.
Yeah.
We just choose to hold on because as long as we hold on, we haven't lost yet.
Right.
Right. The Reddit hashtag HODL, hold on for dear life. Just hashtag HODL, baby.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
No, it just, we think in terms of stocks and investments. Mm-hmm. It's what we do for a living. It's what we live. It's what we breathe. And there is a real component to that I see a lot, very, very often, whereas, the stock is down 50%, and I'm going to hold it until it comes back, until I make my money back. And as an advisor and a coach, sometimes we even struggle with that ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's this whole game of navigating our emotions, navigating what the client's also feeling, and also trying to give good advice that speaks to the emotion. Because usually when we're having that conversation, it's a very emotional time. It's, oh man, I lost 50% of my money in this stock, which is true if you sell it, right? But we're always trying to navigate that emotion and always trying to come up with different ways of looking at it to try and take the emotion out of the investing part.
So I think, to just make sure that we're being really clear of what loss aversion can look like inside of investment management. It's like Brandon goes and puts $2,000 into Coca-Cola, right? The Q3 print comes out and Coca-Cola didn't have a great quarter. The stock dips by 10%. And all of a sudden now that Brandon's $2,000 investment is worth $1,800. And then the Q4 print comes around and that doesn't look too good either. And actually there's kind of this like evidence stacking up that just the leadership of Coca-Cola is trying to do too much, that they're kind of derailing the company. And so because of this news that comes out now, Brandon's $2,000 investment is worth $1,300. Brandon comes to Bill and says, hey, Bill, look, like I put $2,000 into Coca-Cola, and this is 100% hypothetical, just so we're clear. And all of a sudden, my $2,000 investment's worth $1,300. What should I do? And Bill's like, well, let's take a look. And he says, hey, they're trending in a bad direction. It looks like the company leadership isn't making great decisions for the betterment of the company, for the betterment of the product. They might be getting lost in their ways a little bit. And this leader just has a bad history of performing well. So maybe it's time that we go ahead and sell. And I say to Bill, you're crazy. I'm down $700. Why would I sell today? Like if I sell, it's a loss. It's a $700 loss. And, that could be loss aversion, right? That can be loss aversion because I'm choosing to hold on because I don't want to officially say I've lost in this investment. And guess what? If we're doing things intelligently, if I have that grand diversified portfolio, and if $2,000 investment in Coca-Cola actually is the better part of a $50,000 portfolio, then it should not derail me to go ahead and call a loss a loss. When I bought the stock, there was evidence to suggest that this was a good investment and it was fitting my portfolio well. But after I bought this investment, the narrative has shifted and the company leadership has shifted. And now all the evidence is saying, hey, sell the stock. And I don't want to, because I don't want to be a loser, right? I don't want to lose $700. So I hold on for dear life, right? So that can be loss aversion. And there's, we have the overnight test. And Bill, you have one. I'll let you get to yours. I'm going to explain the overnight test, then you can talk about the money on the table.
Sure.
Because these are two great ways to make sure, like if you're finding yourself in a situation where you might have potentially made a money mistake in the past. We talk all the time with clients, like kind of my first step, one of my first steps in the financial planning process when I bring a client in is to acknowledge and undo money mistakes of our past. And sometimes that can be a lot of work. Sometimes you don't have many. But a money mistake of maybe picking an investment that has gone bad. Now, I don't really say that. I don't really want to classify that as a mistake, simply because it's an investment, and sometimes investments go bad, and that's not a mistake. If you did your homework, it's just an investment that didn't work out,
right?
And that's okay. If I make 100 investments and 90 of them work out, I'm winning, right? But the point is, if I'm looking at your portfolio and I'm like, hey, I think this is something that doesn't fit anymore. It doesn't fit your goals, your time horizon. It doesn't fit your risk tolerance. It doesn't fit the portfolio or the narrative of what we're trying to accomplish. Maybe it's time to sell. And you're saying, I don't really want to sell it because it's down and I don't want to like take a loss on it. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to say, hey, let's go and let's do this kind of overnight test. And the overnight test is pretty simple. But basically what I tell people to do is write down the like amount. So company ABC is currently worth $1,300. And so I'm going to write $1,300 on a piece of paper. And then I'm going to sit there for about 10 minutes and say, hey, this is $1,300 of stock in ABC company, or it's $1,300 in cash. And that night, I'm going to think about what I can do with $1,300 of cash, or I'm going to consider what $1,300 of ABC company stock could do over the next, 6 months, 2 years, 10 years, whatever. And I'm going to wake up in the morning after having slept on that thought, that decision, and I'm going to make a decision that I could do more with $1,300 of cash than $1,300 of stock in ABC company, or vice versa, right? So in that sense, I've slept on it overnight, and I looked at it as two different things. I looked at it as stock that could potentially, I'm making the investment today. I'm putting $1,300 into ABC company in the morning, or I'm taking $1,300 of cash and doing something else with it, whether it's investment, spending, whatever the case may be. So that's the overnight test. And it just basically, instead of looking at it as a past decision, we just make it a present right now decision.
Yeah.
Similar to what you're talking about, but explain yours because it's a different frame of thought.
Yeah. So, and again, as coaches and financial planners, what we're trying to do, to reiterate, is take emotion out as much as possible in our decisions, whether we made a mistake in the past or not. And that's a great way to do it, which is another way to frame it. Somebody told this to me a long time ago, but if we're talking about a stock and, it's in your example, $1,300. Another way that I try and look at it with clients is when every day that you hold on to that investment or to that stock, you're making the decision to buy it again because you haven't sold it.
Sure.
And what that does, what I think we're both kind of saying here, is it gives us the opportunity to take a step back and to reevaluate the situation and not succumb to our emotions immediately, like we're talking about with loss aversion. It gives you the opportunity to go, okay, is this money that I have in here, in Coca-Cola, is Coca-Cola still, at this price? Because I'm going to buy it again today. If I leave that money in there, I'm assuming that I'm buying it again today. Is that still a good decision with my money? And the answer could be no. It's Coca-Cola is trending in the wrong direction. I don't know. I don't like what they've done with their management, whatever the logical reasons are. It could also be, and we see this a lot because as financial advisors, we love to tell people to add to their investments when things are down. Your answer could be, yeah, I think Coca-Cola is, this market cycle has just been hard on them. I think they're going to continue to grow, and this is actually a really good price for this stock. Like I'm getting a discount. So maybe the solution's to buy more. The other thing that I love to do with clients as well is what I call re-engineering the question. And it's kind of, flipping the question around. And again, sometimes it makes life a little more clear. For instance, I had this client one time that, they had about $100,000 in company stock, outside of their 401k, but, stock options, things like that. So that's on one side of the coin. And then they also had, like the potential they had a mortgage that was about $100,000, we'll call it. And their question to me was, Bill, should I sell my company stock and then, pay off my mortgage? Right. I said, well, let's look at it a different way. Let's re-engineer the question. And the way that we did that was say, if you had $100,000 in cash sitting on your kitchen table right now in front of you, just take a minute to picture that. You got $100,000 on your kitchen table. Would you go buy company stock with it? Or would you go pay off your mortgage?
Sure.
And, that person at that time said, well, I would pay off my mortgage because, my mortgage payment was, I think $2,000 a month. And that would be really nice to have $2,000 a month more. And then we can have a logical discussion about, taxes and all the nerd work that we do, right? But in that moment, that's a good way sometimes to eliminate the emotion, like I said. And okay, if I got this money in the table, I'm constantly making choices.
Right.
What choice by not doing anything, right? Because let's say she had that stock over there for about a year. Well, for a year, they've chosen to not make any decision. Well, right. What is that inactivity? What choice is that making?
Yeah, it's a huge cost opportunity, right? That's a whole nother. We could do a whole episode on indecision.
It's not that black and white, but yeah, the indecision sometimes is worse.
Right. There's I think one thing that does also, and this I tell people this all the time when I'm working with them, and hopefully you guys understand this, is sometimes getting to the heart of the matter is less about the pluses, minuses, black and white, and more about how it makes you feel. And the way that you re-engineered that question to these clients, it's you kind of rope-a-dope them into telling you what they actually wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now we know what your heart's greatest desire is.
Yeah.
You want to get rid of this mortgage. Let's figure out how to accomplish that. So it's less about, hey, this tax consequence decision or this, cash flow decision. And it's more about, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, your heart really, really wants this.
Yeah,
let's just figure out how to do it.
What helps you sleep at night?
Exactly.
And I think something that we use all the time is what keeps you up at night? What's going to help you sleep at night? It's going to lower stress.
I was thinking about this content, and we've done a conversation called Fear and Greed, right? And in that conversation, we were saying, hey, don't sell just because you're afraid. Right? Don't run away from something. If you made a decision and time, we have clients that have made all kinds of investment decisions, and when we were in the peak of a bull market, now we're in this grueling kind of bearish market that we've been in for a year and a half, and it's draining people.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of optimism left, right? Which is actually a good thing. We can talk about that in another show too.
We get excited about that.
But here's the thing. What I think is really important to understand is in that fear-greed conversation, we're like, hey, just because it's scary and just because something's down 20% doesn't mean you have to sell.
Right.
Don't let fear make your decision for you.
Yeah.
But now we're saying, hey, if something's down 20%, maybe sell it.
Yeah.
Don't hold on to it just because you're afraid of calling a loss, calling a spade a spade.
Right.
So okay, Brandon, if something's down 20%, don't hold on to it because I'm afraid to sell it. But if something's down 20%, don't sell it because I'm afraid to hold it.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Or buy more.
Like, what the heck? And I think what we're trying to drive home here, and the reason why, because like this could be succumbing to loss aversion. If you succumb to loss aversion, the data suggests sell the stock, take your losses, right? If you're fighting that, the data suggests, like if we succumb to it, we're holding on to it despite the evidence to sell.
Right.
If we're fighting that, then we're going to continue holding on to it, or we're going to sell it because the data suggests we should sell it. And we're like, hey, a loss is a loss, and I'm going to have more of them in life, and I'm okay with it.
Right.
Right. On the flip side, if I feel like I need to sell because of just fear, the data might suggest to continue to hold that, right? And we're going to sell just because it's down. The big takeaway here is don't let fear make your decision. Let the evidence and let the portfolio do what the portfolio is designed to do.
Right.
If I pick an investment, and even if it goes up 20%, if that's not a good investment for my goals, the portfolio overall, if it's not a good investment for my time horizon, my risk tolerance, I need to get it out.
Right.
So we're not going to let greed or fear manipulate us. Same thing. We're not going to let fear or greed of loss keep us from making smart, intelligent decisions. So I wanted to bring that all together because I just really want to say, because something is down, you might need to sell it, but you also might not need to sell it. It's really about what's driving the decision. And if the decision is to sell because the data suggests to do it, that's what we want. If the decision to sell or to hold is because of some sort of like fear inside of us of realizing a loss, or fear inside of us of, the stock market getting worse than what it already is, then maybe we just need to realize that it's fear and not data.
Yeah, I think in the theme thread, if we will, of kind of tips and tricks, when that fear drives you to feel like you should make a decision, use it as an opportunity to evaluate. Mm-hmm. And so reframing it, kind of like the way that we re-engineered the questions, was, okay, I'm feeling all these things about my investments, one way or the other, whether I should sell, buy, whatever's going on. Use it as an opportunity instead of I need to make a decision. Use it as an opportunity to reevaluate your decisions. Yeah. And see if you actually do need to change something. And that's what we're here for. That's why you put a coach in your corner. That's why you put somebody who is emotionally detached to a certain extent. We care about our clients and we care about their situations, absolutely. But having that outsider's perspective and say, hey, by the book, this is the right thing to do. Or we're making a read on the economy and we think that this is the right thing to do. We're taking a bit of a chance, but we think that this is going to work out long term.
Right.
That's all reevaluation. That's what an investment is, right? An investment is not, I'm going to pick this stock out of a hat because I think it's going to go bonkers, right? Investment is, I'm going to buy this rental property because it's in a good neighborhood with good schools. And it's probably going to go up in value because at some point in time, somebody else with a family is probably going to want to move in.
Sure.
And so I can reasonably expect this neighborhood to go up in value over time. That's an investment. So again, just to kind of wrap up my thoughts, reevaluate. Don't make decisions and then wonder later what emotions cause you to make that decision. Use it to take a step back.
And I think that if you're self-managing your own assets, I think that reevaluation process is healthy to do weekly. Look at your portfolio and just say, hey, knowing what I know, is all this stuff the same stuff that I would own today if I had, if your total portfolio is worth, $1 million, and you're like, hey, if I had $1 million of cash, would I buy all these same things today? And if the answer is yes, you're good. Yeah. If the answer is, I don't know if I would do that again, maybe it's time to dig deeper and figure out if we need to reanalyze that purchase and undo it potentially. I think that would be a healthy, weekly is healthy. I think if you didn't have time for weekly, at least quarterly. Yeah. If you can't do it quarterly, you probably need to hire someone.
Yeah.
That's just my honest opinion there. Another piece to this puzzle, like kind of like where I'll wrap up and echo what you were saying, is again feeding into that coachability. We all have blind spots, and you're going to hear me say that several times over the next month. We all have blind spots. Having someone that can help create the distance. Distance is winning. Like when I was an MMA fighter, distance is something that you love to have. When I was in the military, creating distance from your enemy is a really, really good thing. So if you have an ability to create emotional distance, to give you clarity, to let the data speak for itself, that can help you and enable you to make a better or more clear decision. If you don't have, honestly, I don't even know if I have it. I think most people don't have a super great ability to separate themselves from their emotional selves when they're being emotional. We like to think we can, but sometimes that's really hard to do. So having someone in your corner that can help create that distance to let you see the data for what it is, helps you to re-engineer that thought of, would I buy this again today, knowing what I know? Sometimes that's all it takes to prevent that loss aversion, is just a little bit of distance and some clarity on what's emotional and what's data-driven. So yeah, that's about it. You got anything?
Be coachable and get a coach.
Yeah. Talk to you guys soon. Loss aversion, it can derail things. Don't succumb to it. We hope you learned something valuable today. We appreciate you including us in your journey towards financial betterment. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes only and not to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you, and you have questions about how it might be uniquely applicable to you, please discuss that with a financial professional, or, of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you about your specific questions, needs, or circumstances. We welcome you to reach out to us via our website, harpethwealthpartners.com, or by emailing Brandon at bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice is offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not to be intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult appropriate qualified professionals prior to making a decision. Investing includes risk, including fluctuating prices and loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. We want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you back next week.